We're bringing developing news.
And the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao. Some stories we're watching this Monday, March 24. VP Sara Duterte says she warned her father, former President Duterte, about the potential danger returning home, likening it to the fate of the late Senator Benigno Aquino Jr. For its part, the Ninoy and Cory Aquino Foundation said history shows a clear difference between what happened to Aquino and Duterte's current situation. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro also dismissed the comparison as baseless, noting that Duterte previously compared himself to Adolf Hitler.
Malacanang has declined to comment on President Marcos's mention of 11 candidates instead of the 12 during the Alianza para sa Bagong Pilipinas' campaign rally in Laguna on Saturday. It was also noted that the president did not mention Senator Amy Marcos when introducing the administration's senatorial slate. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the public should wait for upcoming rallies to understand what the president meant by his remarks. In other news, the Philippines is now VAT-free for foreign tourists following the signing of the implementing rules and regulations for the VAT refund law. Under Republic Act 12079, non-resident tourists can claim VAT refunds on purchases of at least 3,000 pesos from accredited stores. Officials say this move will boost tourism and create jobs, as well as generate higher economic output for the country. The Philippine Army launched Joint Military Exercise Sabak 2025, which stands for Salaknib and Balikatan Exercises 2025, with U.S. forces today. Around 5,000 troops will train in warfighting, humanitarian operations, and live-fire maneuvers across key locations in the country. The exercise aims to improve the Army's preparedness and help protect the country from external threats in the region.
And U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth will visit the Philippines from March 28 to March 29 to advance security ties and meet with Philippine leaders and troops. The Pentagon says Hegseth's trip aims to strengthen alliances in support of a free and open Indo-Pacific. His regional tour will also include stops in Hawaii, Guam, and in Japan. And joining us today, ang muntik nang may ibulgar haba.
While we were reading the headlines.
Tinapik kita eh.
Nakasuot daw ng mantel.
Sino may sabi?
Sabi nung katabi.
Which?
Pwede ako yun, ha? Kasi ikaw mukha kang mantil, ako mukha kang waiter, eh.
Uy. Uy, fishing.
Fishing.
Hindi kami ito mga ito. Ay, teka! Start ng session pala ng pandit. Tito Ronald Llamas.
Okay.
And from the Philippine Star, Editor-in-Chief, Ami Pamintuan. Hi, Ami. Happy Monday.
Ami.
Monday.
Walang audio. Ami, your mic is there.
Ano?
There.
There you go. Your mic's okay.
Oh, di ba? Yung mga suot ni Ami, oh.
You have this particular with fashion, no?
Yung angelic yung dating niya. Para siyang, di ba?
Para yan, parang nagmumukha ako mabait, mukha lang.
Di ba?
Mukha.
Angelic, eh, oh.
Yun ang
Kaya,
pwede ni Ami.
that's why you get accused of being misogynistic eh. Kasi puro appearances yung kinokomentan mo.
Sige na nga.
You gotta say,
Sige na nga, next time, inner beauty na.
Para mabawasan yung taray, Kailangan mukhang mabait.
Yan. Ganyan pag-editor ng Philippine Star. Dapat yung damit man lang hindi mataray, di ba?
dapat yung damit soft.
Hindi, masungit nga ako dito sa opisina.
Ang daming news today. A lot of
Yes.
big news. Monday.
Yes.
And we don't know...
Yun, apart from yung mga nabanggit nyo, yun na nga, hinarang na naman tayo sa Scarborough. Well, that's not yet confirmed ng gobyerno natin, Pero yan ang sabi nung Skylight, na hinarang na naman ng Chinese ships yung ating Coast Guard and BFAR ship.
Sea Light ba? Sea Light.
Yes,
With
Sea Light.
With Ray Powell. Oh.
Kaya iniintay pa natin yung official confirmation. Although baka meron na ngayon, baka may official confirmation na.
Ami, anong hinarang yung Coast Guard? And what was it exactly? The Coast Guard was trying to get near Scarborough?
Usually kasi pag Scarborough, BFAR yan. Before.
BIFAR siya, pero may escort siyang dalawang Coast Guard. Meron siyang escorted, yun naman usually yung mga BIFAR natin, di ba? Saka mga fishing boat natin, they are escorted by the Coast Guard, lumapit sila, hinarang sila ng mga 6 yata yun. 6 na according to yung hindi pa nga nako-confirm nating report. Although wala pa namang, halos lahat naman ng report niya confirmed later, di ba? Yan.
I'm looking at the tweet of Ray Powell, yung founder nga ng Sea-Light. He
si Ray Powell,
says,
yeah.
BRP Bagakay and BRP Datu Pagbuaya were intercepted by 2 China Coast Guard vessels.
Wala naman dyan yung monster ship ng Chinese Coast Guard.
Wala
Malaki.
pa.
Hindi, wala.
Wala pa.
Wala.
Usually, dyan pumunta yun.
Wala.
Sa Scarborough.
But we don't know as
Yan,
well.
saka
Go ahead, Amy.
Hindi, sabi, inaano ko lang yung mga story namin. Tinatap ng NBI yung Interpol, Interpol again. They will tap Interpol to get down yung mga fake news purveyors na nasa labas ng Pilipinas. I think they're targeting specifically at least one person,
Oh,
But that's Interpol again.
Yung ibang pinatawag dun sa TRICOM, mukhang nag-abroad eh. Hindi ko alam kung bakasyon
kaya
or
gano'n.
iwas. So.
Kaya magpapatulong sila sa Interpol.
Yeah. Actually,
Yan.
that's the story we're going to try to tackle today. We have, let's bring in our
Yes.
first guest on it. We have Dean Tony Lavinia, who is, wait lang, I'm waiting for the introduction. Nasa Zoom na kasi. Founding president of the movement against disinformation. Good afternoon,
Hi, Dean. Good afternoon po.
Good afternoon, Dean.
Good afternoon, Dean.
Good afternoon lahat sa inyo, Ed, Ronald, Ami.
Good afternoon, Dean.
Hi, sir. Hope you're well.
Ano bang tingin mo, Dean, dun
Okay
sa
naman.
naging TRICOM hearing nung nakaraang linggo? Na umamin yung ilang mga vloggers na nag-spread nga sila ng disinformation. Yung dating ang head ng PCOO ay umamin na tinrain daw sila ng China. No?
Yep.
Anong tingin mo ron, Dean?
Well, they should be held accountable. Sa tingin ko, hindi kailangan ng bagong batas, no? Para i-hold sila accountable. Ang daming batas na pwede nang gamitin, both criminal, but for those naman na affected by, di ba, yung ganitong, I don't want to call it fake news kasi hindi naman siya news, di ba? By this type of, reports and post fictitious, diba? Post and report. Meron din silang nakita namin ang pinaka-effective are civil cases, filing civil cases. Kasi this is about money, no? Alam mo, hindi ito about pro Duterte ba sila, pakamatay ba sila para kay Duterte. Pera ito, di ba? Namamonetize kasi nila lahat ng posts nila, di ba? Lalong ngayon na hindi lang nababayaran sila, but every time dumadami yung kanilang audience, may mga advertisement sila, mga ganyan. So you have to hit them where it hurts them the most, di ba? Which is with their pockets.
Yeah.
Kaya hindi ako favor ng bagong batas that will define fake news kasi alam naman natin madaling i-turn around yan against the legitimate press, di ba? And against freedom of speech. But yung sa mga ay namin nila, ang daming nakikita ko pwedeng i-charge sa kanila na already existing laws, no? Doesn't even have to be libel.
There's Article 154, the Revised Penal Code.
Yes, lahat ng daming pwedeng options. And for the government people, of course, may iba pang options doon, no?
Yeah.
So, I think yun ang kailangan natin i-track. The hearings are important kasi, di ba, yung nalalabas natin lahat ng nangyayari. But I think ang next action should not necessarily be a law, but should be prosecution and running after. And particularly, as I said, importante na na we go after the business, di ba?
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
Including, by the way, importante to go after the platforms. And YouTube, Google,
Yeah.
lahat yan sila kasi kaya ito nag-proliferate, di ba? dahil pinapayagan. Kahit na pinapa-pull down mo, the harm is already done, di ba? Lalo na kung vlogger has millions of followers.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
The harm is already done. So, yun din, pwedeng marami din tayong options on how to go after
Yeah.
the platforms. Tinatawag natin big tech, no?
Yeah.
Na yung mayaman sa misery natin, di ba? Sa nangyayaring ganitong klaseng disinformation na lumalabas.
Dean Tony, that's actually what I was going to point out. Lahat ng laws that you mentioned puts the burden on the user, right? It's on you if you share fake news. It's on you if you cyber libel someone. Pero so far, there is no law that puts the burden on the social media platforms. And I think it's not clear yet what the House hearing is trying to get at. Pero isn't that what we need at this point? A law that holds liable the social media platforms, also forces them to, be more accountable and be more transparent in their moderation, for instance.
Yes, definitely may gap sa batas tungkol dyan. There's a gap in the law there. So that maybe is actually a good way of just stopping this, di ba? Once and for all. It's very scary, ha? Alam nyo, tinatanong ko anong ginagawa ko. Busy ako sa on-the-ground na work against disinformation. Alam nyo, sa traditional media or sa institutional media, among the lawyers, di ba? Academe, malinaw naman kung anong katotohanan. But on the ground, nananalo ang Duterte forces, di ba? In terms of portraying this as a victimhood, yung lahat ng kanilang they really are winning kasi natuto lang mas magaling sa vlogging, sa TikTok, di ba yung gano'n, and of course other people like halimbawa mga human rights lawyers sa human rights, we're busy with the other things, di ba? Those mga mass movements, mga political parties busy with the elections. So basically on the ground, itong mga disinformation peddlers, di ba, are the ones, the terrain is all theirs. Kaya challenge namin sila, kami, we're coming up with something that challenge namin on the ground, yung kasi kami naman, we're not political, di ba? We're not even a human rights organization, we're an anti-disinformation organization. Focus lang kami talaga doon, di ba? But we see what's happening on the ground is actually scary, kasi lahat yan, di ba, Ronald, dito, may electoral consequences yan in 2025 and especially in 2028, di ba? We really have to up our ilalim sa ground.
Hindi na itong all the debates about disinformation, they revolve around freedom of expression eh. Merong sinabi si Juan Ponce Enrile, I hate to quote him about when it comes to human rights, pero sabi niya, freedom of expression is underpinned by truth. Truth underpins freedom of information, freedom of expression. Anong masasabi mo doon?
Totoo naman yun, di ba? Na you can't have freedom of speech, freedom of expression unless you have access to information. Di ba? How can you have, ang problema natin is we also have access, universal access now to disinformation. So yun ang kailangan natin ipa-plug, no? I mean, and di ba, ang traditional kami sa mga professors sa constitutional law, ang traditional response namin, di ba, is if there's bad information, ang sagot niyan, good information. If there's bad views, ang sagot niyan, better views, di ba? Parang nagde-debate tayo sa market. But nagbago na yung situation na social media has changed the situation so much, di ba? Na baka yung old paradigm namin na good, lalo ba ngayon, di ba? I mean, ako wala akong masasabi sa ginagawa niyo, Ami, sa ginagawa niyo, Ed, sa ginagawa ng Rappler at lahat, di ba, ng institutional media. You're doing a really good job, di ba? But you're not hitting the right audience, di ba? Na on-the-ground audience. Na dati, mas radio ang but even now, hindi na yung radio, di ba? Podcast, videocast, di ba? Lahat yan
TikTok.
Wala tayo sa terrain yun.
Nabalitaan ko nga, Dean.
In that terrain.
Nabalitaan ko nga, Dean, may isang bubuit na nagsabi sa akin, may nagpaabot na unofficially sa TikTok ng reklamo. At kung hindi sila mag-aayos, ay gagawing official yung reklamo. Dahil nga, medyo malinaw naman ngayon sino nagdo-dominate ng TikTok since last October. At saka malinaw din kung sino may-ari ng TikTok. Kaya mukhang merong magiging offensive against TikTok in the next few weeks. Ang hinihingi ba ng inyong organization, Dean, ay greater regulation dito sa mga social media platforms na ito? Paano sa US kasi medyo nagbabago yung climate eh. Parang in the name of freedom of expression,
Bumaliktad.
Talagang wina-wipe out yung regulatory functions ng gobyerno, yung mga fact-checkers, no? At ano bang advocacy nyo para dito sa problemang ito?
Ang term na ginagamit namin, Ronald, is hindi regulation, but accountability. Di ba? If they post something, if they allow something to be posted that is harmful, di ba? They should be held to account for that, di ba? Iba-ibang level ng pag-account, pwedeng i-close down sila kung persistent, di ba? Kung persistent sila. We hesitate to do that kasi alam mo naman, yung lahat yan, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, hindi naman lahat yan politika, di ba? Marami dyan negosyo, marami dyan personal, di ba? So, it can be also, di ba, harmful to a lot of people if you suddenly close down kung saan sila nag-advertise ng kanilang mga products, di ba? Saan sila nagbebenta, saan sila nagre-reunion sa pamilya at sa mga kaklase. But, pwede rin kung at certain point, the harm in society is so big already na yun ang pinakagrabe, we close them down, di ba? So like sa TikTok, kung meron yung national security issue na yun, di ba? Then pwede siyang i-close down. No? I'm not gonna necessarily advocate that now, pero yun ang range mo from close down to civil liability for those who have been hurt, di ba? Kami, we're very proud na si Ato Maraulio, we were able to secure, di ba, an important judgment from him na talagang ang result doon, nagtatakbuhan na yung mga red taggers, di ba? Nagtatago na at umaalis na ng bansa, sa totoo lang, di ba? Because they know we're coming after them and others are coming after them. Ngayon, maraming mga media actually lumalapit sa amin and we said yes, pag media, we will do that for media kasi strategic. We will not just do that for any individual na inaatake kasi, di ba, dami-dami nun eh. But for media particularly, we will do that. For political figures like Laila de Lima, we also did that kasi napaka-strategic yun na to stop the disinformation.
Dean, let me ask you naman about
speaking of accountability,
your point
kasi
of view.
yung depensa nung nakikinig ako nung, ang basa ko lang hindi naman sila actually nag-admit to disinformation per se, pero sinabi lang nila na meron silang maling information pero hindi daw malicious yung posting nila, hindi daw willfully. Tapos sabi nila nilagay naman yung allegedly, di ba, yung daw. What do you think of that defense?
Alam mo, na-confuse sila between freedom of expression and speech and freedom of the press. Kayo, Ami, pwede niyong excuse yun na nagkamali kayo. Di ba? Ang Philippine Star, Inquirer, Rappler, Channel 5, Channel, di ba, yung One News, lahat kayo, pwede kayong magsabi na na nagkamali kami, mag-eratong kayo kasi may editorial content kayo, di ba? Meron kayong monitoring, meron kayong fact-checking, di ba? So pwede nyo sabihin yon. Po sila, hindi lang pwede sabihin yon. Kasi hindi naman sila journalist. Dito ang distinction, di ba, between a journalist and a vlogger, an ordinary person that posts, di ba? Because the only thing that they can claim is that they have not harmed people. Yun ang defense nila. But alam natin, they harm people with this kind of disinformation. They harm society with this kind of disinformation. So, completely wrong defense yun sa kanila. Obviously, hindi nila nakuha yung memo ng lawyer nila na hindi sila journalist, di ba? And therefore, absence of malice is irrelevant. Di ba? To someone who attacks people like that or gives disinformation like that.
Dean, let me ask you about the other side of the fence naman. Of course, we all are against the spread of disinformation. Pero how do you view how congressmen treated that particular hearing? Specifically, how they treated
The
DDS, the pro-Duterte bloggers. I asked that kasi, yes, we don't like misinformation and it should be called out, but to the extent ba na you will threaten them with contempt unless they apologize in public? I mean, I suppose on one hand, we should push back, but on the other hand, do we push back to that to that extent that you threaten them with jail time?
Yeah, I mean, always naman, even in a congressional hearing, may just due process, di ba? At may respect for rights. So, to the extent na na-violate yung rights nila, I will side with them. But I actually don't think na-violate yung rights nila, di ba? Because precisely, they were not telling the truth. Iba yon if an journalist is telling the truth or is withholding the truth because of journalistic principles, diba? Like you cannot disclose your sources. Iba yon, diba? But to outright lie to Congress, diba, is not really appropriate. You deserve to be treated that way if you lie to Congress that way, diba? Yun ang aking
Yes,
doon, yun
yes,
ang aking
Opo.
what was done to Duterte yung day na inarrest siya. He was given all his rights, respected all his rights, diba? But did they abuse it? Diba? Kaya in the end, hinandcuff yung lawyer niya, and he was threatened, body carry kita kung gagawin mo pa yun. Because you cannot abuse your rights also when the public interest is involved.
Yes, sir. Pero sir, to the extent nga na, MJ Kiambao Reyes was threatened with the contempt unless she apologized in public. And also, tinawag siyang, I don't know if I can say it here, TANGA, harapan.
It's not a cuss word. Yeah.
It's not a cuss word.
It's not a cuss word.
Yung mga ganun, inappropriate talaga yun, di ba? I mean, nakasulat ako dito, marami naman talaga nangyari sa Quadcom, sa yung iba-ibang mga hearings sa House of Representatives. Medyo inappropriate yung language minsan ng, di ba, ng mga congressman. So, naman yun?
Yes, sir.
Considered naman yung gano'n na hindi mo siya pwede. Hindi mo
Yes,
dapat
sir.
hindi mo i-date, di ba?
Yes, sir. Sir,
But if you lie to Congress, you should be called out.
Yes, sir. Sir, one more thing, sir. We talked to a reporter who was covering there last week. Ang sabi niya kasi we asked him, ano bang gusto ng Congress mangyari dito sa hearing na to? What do they want to come up with? I suppose legislation of some sort. Ang sabi sa amin ng reporter namin, some sort of a legal framework and possibly then a code of conduct. I don't know, governing what? Social media behavior ba or that? Or anything like that? I mean, is that something for government to draw up, a code of conduct for social media? Wouldn't that be worrisome in any way?
Yeah, kaya nga, I'm not in favor, except yung yung sinabi kanina, laws for social media platforms.
The platforms, yeah.
I'm not in favor of any kind of government intervention, definition, legislative definition ng fake news or ng gano'n. Kasi nga, magiging affected tayo lahat niyan eventually.
Yeah.
Diba? Ngayon silang, and maybe we cheer that, but eventually all of us will be affected. So of course, it would help social media practitioners if they come up with their own code, di ba? Di ba ganun sa press, di ba? Sa print media, I have been a member yung Philippine Press Council, di ba? Yung right to reply, di ba? So self-regulation yon yung right to reply. Kaya rightly so, nung pinipush ni Senator Pimentel at yun, Aquilino Pimentel yung right to reply bill, nag-resist tayo, di ba, sa media. Hindi kasi kailangan, kasi meron na tayong regulatory self-regulation sa right to reply, and I was a chair of that and member of that with different editors, di ba? And we handled some of the cases there na when people complained, di ba, na they were not given the chance to give their side.
Yeah.
So importante din self-regulation, including by social media practitioners,
Well,
but not by the government.
To that end, how effective would a self-regulating body be? Kasi the example they kept bringing up was KBP, Kapsanan ng mga Broadcaster ng Pilipinas, which is a self-regulating industry body for broadcasters like us. Pero the membership is by organization, right? So if they were to create a digital, what did they call it? Content Creators Council ba yun?
Parang
If-
everybody...
That's a mouthful.
Oo nga eh. How would it work and who should be on it, right? Because this presumably would be the council to decide how everyone behaves on social media. Medyo parang malawak yung ano.
Well, it will be individuals, diba? Kasi yun naman yung business model dito. Individuals who voluntarily participate. You cannot force people to participate, but it can be an industry standard, diba? Again, i-repeat ko, this is about business. Pera ito, lots of money are involved. So, ang regulation dito dapat directed, follow where the money is, diba? Including sa elections, related na campaign finance, diba? Follow where the money is. And regulate there in that part of the business, diba? Or of what they do.
Pero din, di ba,
Pero
konektado
if
dito
you start
dito sa
regulating the
sinasabi niyo follow
business,
the
saka
money.
monetization, can you also regulate the content? Kasi parang sa ano yan eh, halimbawa sa TV, may mga guidelines actually on TV for content na wala sa amin eh, sa print.
Yeah.
Dahil iba yung medium eh.
Yes,
You're
sir.
saying na pwede yun, ganon.
Yeah, it's self-regulation, di ba? They develop that themselves, di ba? Yung mga ano. But here is where again another point.
It's more also, it's actually more than self-regulation sa TV eh. Pwede silang tanggalan actually ng franchise. If they violate those rules sa franchise, meron silang specific rules eh, sa TV eh, na hindi ka pwedeng maglabas na, halimbawa obscenity, medyo mahigpit sila.
Sorry.
Ganon.
Ami, sorry, I think we lost Dean Tony.
Nasa ano pa siya?
Dyan.
Yeah, nasa ano pa siya?
I'm back here.
Okay.
Yeah, nawala lang siya. So ganun ba, pwede ba yun? Can you go into content while regulating the business?
The content regulation, di ba? Di ba may difference sa freedom of speech? You can regulate what's called content neutral aspects of the business. But you cannot, or you have very strict scrutiny for content-based regulation, di ba? Bawal yon as a general rule, di ba? You cannot tell a person what to speak. You can tell a person how to speak, how to post, where to post. Pwede yun. Yun ang tinatawag na content-neutral regulation. So the business, di ba, is still content-neutral. But yung content-based, talagang ano yun. But here again is another point I want to make, kanina ko pang ginagawa, di ba, na more of us must go into that business, di ba, of social media practitioners na that are more, di ba, I don't know how to do it. I can't sabihin mas mabait, mas magaling, mas nationalistic, di ba, but more people should go into it with a public interest view in mind, di ba? Because otherwise, talagang the business will be full of people who are there for the money.
Yeah. Ron?
Dean, merong binuksan itong TRICOM hearing na ito eh. Partly in relation dun sa sinasabi nyo kanina na follow the money, na hindi kayang gawin ng simpleng self-regulation. The national security issue. Halimbawa, no less than the former head of the PCOO, inner core ng Malacanang, ay umamin na sila ay tinetrain ng isang foreign country, a superpower at that, na ino-occupy yung part ng ating territory, how to be bloggers. Diba, hindi to simpleng freedom of the press, hindi to simpleng regulation, self-regulation. Ito ay nasa borderline ng ng treason eh. No? Kung yung mismong high-ranking official, or at least former high-ranking official, ay inaamin that they are being trained by a foreign power, China at that. Na at this point, wala lang tayong tension. Ino-occupy part of our territory. So, anong kwan dyan? Anong kinakailangan mo dyang regulation?
Ronald, very clear naman. Where there's a clear and present danger to society, pwede talaga siyang i-regulate. Pwede siyang i-censor for that matter. Diba? So, that's not what I'm talking about. If in fact, diba, may legitimate national, again, importante legitimate national security. Kasi some red taggers, the government people, sasabihin nila, they're doing this kasi anti-terrorist sila, di ba? Against terrorism, etc., etc. So, we have to watch out for that also. Kasi, di ba, yung terrorist activism is not terrorism. We said that, the Supreme Court sided with us on that, pero ginagamit pa rin nila, di ba? So, we just have to be careful lang na highest standards ang required pag erase natin yung clear and present danger.
Okay.
So, the government can close down a newspaper, a TV station, di ba, a person's blog. If that person, that newspaper, that is creating a clear and present danger. That's really the only standard we follow in the Philippines, which is a very strict standard. Di ba?
Yeah.
Hindi yan basta-basta ang ginagamit lang. In fact, wala pang newspaper sa Pilipinas na na-close down because of that standard. Every time i-attempt, sinasabi ng Supreme Court, hindi. Di ba? Hindi siya nag-rise up to clear danger. But sa national security, gera, China, treason, that will rise up to it, di ba? If you're able to show na in fact may clear and present danger.
Okay, we'll leave that there for now. Thank you so
sir.
much.
Dean Tony
Salamat.
Labinya.
Thank you, Dean.
Salamat din.
Ingat, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, you're watching Storycon on One News. We just need to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.
You've got developing news in the stories behind headlines. Welcome back to Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Regina Lay. Still with us, Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star and Ronald Llamas, our resident political pundit.
Much has been discussed about the validity of former President Duterte's arrest based on a warrant issued by the ICC. But former Supreme Court Chief Justice Artemio Panganiban raised a question about the ICC's jurisdiction to conduct a trial and pass judgment against Duterte. According to him, under the Rome Statute that created the ICC, there is a 2-year prescriptive period for this. That if a state withdraws from the court, the ICC's Office of the Prosecutor only has 2 years from the effective date of withdrawal to conduct any preliminary examination or investigation. Let's discuss this issue with Attorney Joel Butuyan, an ICC accredited lawyer. Sir, magandang hapon and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Magandang hapon, attorney.
Good afternoon, attorney.
Magandang hapon.
Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us, sir. Sir, I suppose, sir, you read naman na Panganiban sa column. It's quite interesting, eh. Pero please bear with us, we're not lawyers. So
Learned lang.
we're just trying to
Wanna be
understand
lawyers.
these legal issues and kasi there's so much stuff being tossed about. Ito po, ang sabi po ni Panganiban, if I'm getting this right, is that the prosecutor applied for an investigation beyond the 2-year prescriptive period set by the ICC to the Rome Statute. Do you agree with that, sir? Or is there any validity to that argument?
I think Ed, former Chief Justice Panganiban was referring to the 1-year extended period of jurisdiction of the ICC.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, when a country withdraws from the ICC, the withdrawal becomes effective only after 1 year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in the previous decision of the appeals chamber, where it resulted in a 3-2 vote,
Yes, sir.
3 in favor of
Dismissing the appeal.
virtual jurisdiction to the ICC to continue with the investigation on the Philippines, and 2 minority judges saying that the reasoning was that the ICC OTP prosecutor's investigation should have been started within that 1-year extended jurisdiction of the ICC. I think that's because if you remember, the prosecutor in our case obtained authority to conduct formal preliminary investigation beyond the 1-year period.
Yes, sir.
I think that's the issue that's being raised by
Yes, sir.
the former justice. Yes.
Yes, sir. So, sir, yeah, if you look at that, the time frame, ano po, would this be a valid investigation given that it's beyond the 1-year period? Kasi we're looking at beyond the 1-year period. Kung March 17 na nag-take effect ang withdrawal, May 24 na raw po, 2 years later, na grant, nag-apply ng investigation ng prosecutor at na-grant daw siya September 2021. That's also beyond 2 years.
Attorney, di ba mutin academic na yan dahil dinesisyon na yan ng ICC?
Actually, pwedeng erase ulit ni Mr. Duterte kasi hindi siya party dun sa may appeal na ni-raise ng Philippine government. So, nasa rules ng ICC mismo, pwede niyang i-raise ulit yan as ground, no? Pero ang aking punto dito,
Yes, sir.
well, with all due respect to the Chief Justice, whom I really hold in high esteem,
Yes, sir.
I have a different opinion, no? Kasi if you say that the preliminary investigation should have been started within the 1-year period, paano kung halimbawa yung crime against humanity happened on the 11th month, no, 1 year before the effectivity of the withdrawal, no? The prosecutor cannot immediately start preliminary investigation. You know why? Because there are so many requirements. Unang-una, there has to be a demonstration of inability or unwillingness on the part of the Philippine government, not to do its investigation. Remember, the ICC will only step in if there's unwillingness or inability of the domestic country, of the domestic state, no? So within 1 year ba kakayanin sabihin ng ICC na Hindi pa nag-investigate yung Philippines, hindi effective yung investigation ng Philippines, no? Unwilling yung Philippines, hindi. Kasi it takes months, it takes years for the ICC to find out na talagang unwilling yung local country to investigate. Pangalawa, before the prosecutor can investigate, kailangan niya ng authorization from the pre-trial chamber, mag-a-apply muna yan. Ipapafile niya yung application niya. Tapos i-grant yan ng pre-trial chamber. So within 1 month, hindi po pwede imposible mangyayari yung mga events na mga yung mga preconditions na mga yun. No? And kung i-require mo yung mga yan, talagang maging imposible, parang useless yung 1-year jurisdiction ng ICC. So I think, for me, that is an argument that will not hold water and it's going to be denied by the ICC.
Attorney?
So when it comes to jurisdiction, attorney, sa tingin niyo mas malaki yung sinasabi nga nung prosecution side naman na meron silang jurisdiction kung nangyari when the country was still a member of the ICC. Mas malakas yun. Kasi yung mga crimes imputed nangyari nung member pa tayo. We were part of the Rome Statute pa.
Yes, Ami. For as long as the crime was committed during the time that we were still a member, no, it can be investigated even after the expiration of the 1 year, no, from our withdrawal. So po pwede kasi wala namang requirement, walang explicit requirement dun sa may ICC, dun sa Rome Statute, no, and it is against the policy and the spirit of the ICC statute.
Attorney, ang tanong ko ay meron bang jurisprudence ang ICC for or against sa sinasabi ni Justice Pangiliban?
Wala pa akong nakikitang ganong jurisprudence. In fact, medyo novel itong issue na to ng Pilipinas, no? Dahil merong previous case na yung preliminary investigation nangyari within the 1-year extended period of jurisdiction.
That's what they're saying. This is going to be a landmark case not just for the Philippines but also for the ICC. Kasi sui generis.
Sui generis, again.
Attorney
That
Butuyan,
phrase again.
I just wanted to ask you about something you said last week. You participated in a press forum and sabi mo, the case against Mr. Duterte may be completed in as little as a year considering the evidence at hand. Although from what we understand, cases at the ICC take years and years to complete. What makes you say that?
Well, actually, I'm just echoing the statement of the only Filipino who has been a judge in the International Criminal Court, Judge Raul Pangalangan. In one interview before a Singaporean press, he made the observation that in all the cases which took 7 to 8 years in the ICC, those cases involve multiple charges, 7, 8 charges, no? Dito sa kaso natin, 1 charge lang, crime against humanity of murder. So ini-expect niya na mas mabilis, no? And para sa akin din, kasi dun sa mga ibang kaso, ang mahirap talaga is paano mo itahi yung crimes committed on the ground dun sa may participation ng masterminds, no? Minsan ang hirap mong i-attribute yon. Kailangan italon yung participation ng mastermind kagaya ng presidente o ng leader, no? Paano yung kanyang command responsibility? Kailangan mo mag-present ng evidence. Eh dito sa kaso ni Mr. Duterte, ang dami-dami niyang statement owning up to the multiple EJ cases that were committed under his administration. So mas madali yung ebidensya.
Okay.
Katutak yung kanyang statement,
we have a lot of
self-incrimination.
We have a lot of questions,
Pero, sir,
but no, we have to.
but
Sorry.
the argument has always been, their argument also, it's hyperbole.
Yes, that's true. Figure of speech lang.
Hindi uubra sa ICC
How
yun.
does that work?
Hindi uubra sa ICC yun.
Kaya sabi nga niya, sinasabi naman namin, joke lang yon. Alam mo kung joke yung mga yon, buhay at tumatawa sana yung mga biktima, hindi patay, no? At
Walang
hindi umiiyak yung mga pamilya. Pero ito, patay yung mga so hindi joke yung mga yun.
Hindi hyperbole.
Okay. We have to let you go, attorney, because we know that we have
Thank you, sir.
another meeting. But thank you so much for making
Salamat,
time
sir.
for us today.
Thank you.
Attorney Joel
Thank you,
Butuyan,
attorney.
ICC accredited
May
lawyer.
self-regulation kami rito eh.
No, kasi before he accepted the guesting, Sabi niya, I have to be out 4:50 on the dot.
Sa presinto ka paliwanag.
Papaliwanag pa eh. No?
So we said, okay, sige, 4:50 out ka na. But it's an interesting point. You know, differing opinions.
Yeah.
The former Chief Justice Panganiban and Attorney Joel
And
Butuyan.
they're all experts. I mean, they're all legal experts.
Sabi ko nga sa'yo, may dalawang abogado ko sa isang kwarto, 5 opinion yan.
Yun yung
May
mahirap
conditional.
eh. Oo.
May mga conditional.
Kami lang ni Ed may 3 lang opinion namin.
Oo, dalawa lang kami.
Hindi pa kami
Tama
abogado.
kayo,
kayo
lawyer ka na.
ng
Hindi pa
bagong
kayo-
jurisprudence. Remember siya, Temyo Panganiban, siya yung nag-ano ng constructive resignation.
Oo.
Ano din yan sa atin? First time din yan sa atin.
Ay, kaya pa yan.
Oo, kaya
Baka may
Oo.
makita rin tayo dito.
Oo nga, the fact na walang jurisprudence, that's what makes it interesting
Again?
as well.
Pero yan yung nagdeklara na yung aming arrest ni Randy David, ng state of emergency ni GMA ay
26.
unconstitutional.
Si former Chief Justice
Yeah.
Panganiban.
26, no?
Sabi niya, ayan,
Yes.
bubuhat na naman ako ng bangko. One of the 5 landmark
Kaya
cases
nga.
daw ng Supreme Court.
Naging
When is a state of emergency legal and constitutional?
Talaga notorious ka talaga. Talaga sumasabi ka sa kung saan-saan. Okay.
Okay, we have to say goodbye. Thanks for joining Storycon today. I'm Amy Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star, Ronald Llamas, a resident political pundit. Join us again tomorrow, 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.